It's all about the guys there, and I'm just the lucky guy to travel around the world getting the credit for it. But it's actually our heroes. That's the guys at the distillery. I don't see this as a job for me. For me, it's still my hobby, and it's definitely more my passion. So.
You know you're a legend.
I don't see myself as a legend
in the whiskey industry.
Yes, but I've been in the industry for 35 years, but I'm 19 years with Highland Park, and was told the other day that I'm the longest serving ambassador in the world for the same brand. So,
yes.
So I think that's probably legendary. That that I'm not jumping from one brand to another, but stay true to Highland Park, because that was the reason I said yes back in the days. It was because it was Highland Park, and always wanted to work for them. So 19 years actually have passed on extremely quickly, but I've seen the changes from design of bottles, but also production, and I would say mostly the way people drink whiskey, and the knowledge that just have grown over the years has been unbelievable. When I began 35 years ago, you really had to explain everything that water, barley, and yeast can make whiskey at some point. Today, you have to go deeper in. You have to explain them barley types and yeast types, and all these kind of things that gives the flavors to whiskey. And for me, of course, that's been a journey that has been really, really good, because it gives me the chance to talk much more about my hobby as well, and not just about how whiskey is made, but simply go deep into casks, to yeast, to barley, and these kind of things. But also still going back to talk about the 3 ingredients.
Yes,
I do the education as well. So it's a lot about mixing a knowledge that I still, it's a knowledge I built up over 35 years. And sometimes, when question comes, you really have to dig deep in your library, in your brain, and then next day you have to just go back to absolutely basic. And I actually love that kind of transition, but also the diversity in my job, that no 2 days will ever be the same.
Okay, so let's proceed.
Yes.
As I've told you at the bar show, we have also a common thing.
Yeah.
I was at the Navy also.
Yeah. So
for complete my dream to be a graphic designer, and after to go into whiskey. So, Martin, the first question. You've been with Highland Park for many years, as we said.
Yes.
What first drew you to the distillery, and what keeps you passionate about it today?
Yeah, well, I was at Highland Park for the first time probably about 25 years ago. And I was drawn by, first of all, the nature of Orkney, the people of Orkney, but also the passion they showed at Highland Park for their whiskey. And then I like the fact that they're so far away. So going back to 1798, where it was illegal to produce whiskey, they actually made whiskey where no one would. And as I say, well, we make whiskey where no one else could. And I think that kind of eager to produce something all the way back then, and still keep traditions with floor malting, just for me makes Highland Park unbelievable. And still to this very day, when I go back to Orkney and to visit the guys, which is the closest I can call family as well, because I travel so much, and of course my girlfriend at home. But when I travel, this is my family in Orkney. And going back, and still see that even though there's a lot of new people, that they show the same passion, but also that I can still learn every time I'm up there. There's something new going on, and I think that is what really, really drives me, and what still makes me love Highland Park more than. not everything, but almost. It's for me. It's not. I don't see this as a job for me. For me, it's still my hobby, and it's definitely more my passion. So.
Great.
Yeah.
As I told you, I think that I'm one of the few Greeks that have visited Highland Park.
Yeah, yeah.
I will show you a photo.
Yeah.
I visited Highland Park in 2017.
Okay, yeah.
2017 with my wife.
Yeah.
And well, this is a magnificent distillery. It's like a Victorian village.
100%.
This is...
and you know, I'm sorry to say, but nothing much have changed over the years. It's still the same. That said, we just did a few things at the distillery to make it more sustainable, but we are still doing the floor malting, and we're still cutting peat and all these kind of things. So we are still traditional, as you say. It's going back in time. I you know, when you're there, you can easily imagine how Magnus Jørgensen, he was working on this when he founded it back in 1798. So.
Perfect. So, second question. Highland Park has a very distinctive style.
Yes.
Combining smoke and sweetness. How would you describe the soul of Highland Park whiskey in your own words?
Well, first of all, we are unique in one way that some of the flavors that we have in Highland Park will come from the local peats at Hobbyster Muir, which is a type of peat you won't find anywhere else in Scotland. As you said, you've been there, so you know that it can be quite windy, and that means that because of the wind that comes in from the Atlantic Ocean and from the North Sea, it makes it very, very hard for trees to survive and grow there. And that means even though we go down and when we cut our peat, you know, it's thousands of years of layers of peat we are going down. And even though we go down to, let's say, peat that was created 3,000 years ago, we don't find traces of trees, but only this beautiful heather that we have. So that's one thing that creates a whiskey. That's the heather peat, which is unique for Orkney and for Highland Park because we're the only distillery using it. But then there's something like, you know, the climate. It's very much affected by the Gulf Stream that comes up and makes the summers pretty cool. Actually too cool some now, and not again too cold, but then it makes the winters pretty mild. Of course we have the chill factor with the wind coming in and these kind of things, but it's actually quite rare you see frost and snow there. And that climate, when we mature our whiskey, makes a difference as well. So there's a few things that makes it different, but one thing I need to mention when we talk about the true Orkney spirit is the guys at the distillery. You know, without their knowledge and, as I said before, their passion to make Highland Park, I don't think we would be the brand we are today. It's all about the guys there, and I'm just the lucky guy to travel around the world getting the credit for it. But it's actually our heroes. That's the guys at the distillery. So, and the true kind of spirit of it.
Yes. Well, the people of whiskey are unique.
Yes. It's
and you know, we only know the story that when the other distillery of the island was closed, people from Highland Park were there to produce whiskey.
Yeah, but I think when you look at some of the islands in Scotland, but also, of course, some of the smaller places in Scotland, you probably find the same in Speyside at some of the distilleries. But when the other distilleries in Orkney called Scapa, when they closed down and didn't produce for a long period, when we then closed down for the summer to do our refurbishment, we sent some of our staff over there to produce for them. So over the years they were closed, we actually produced 4 or 5 weeks doing summer for them to keep their kind of warehousing up to date, but also did a few maintenance things up there for them. And I think we never seen Scapa as a competitor. We more seen them as a colleague. As it's a very different whiskey from Highland Park, I think we complement each other for visitors that comes up as well. So you know, I rate Scapa very, very high as a colleague, and also the people working there. You know, we have a good relationship with them. I think that's how it should be in a small community like Orkney.
Yes, it's a great story because you had a community there, a whiskey community.
Yes.
And in my travels in Scotland, I saw that in every distillery works someone relative of another guy that's in another distillery.
But you know, we if you see our team at Highland Park, there's generation going back, but there's also people that have worked at Scapa, came over to us, and some people that have gone back again. We just had a guy that's been working for us for over 20 years, but he started at Scapa, and then when they closed down, he came to Highland Park. Now he's retired, but he went back to Scapa to be a tour guide. And you know, there's nothing like, oh, he went to the enemy. No. I'm just happy as long as he's working in the industry, because he had a knowledge that is just beyond anything, you know.
Okay.
So for that, I think it's a special place that we work together, and no one looked bad to the other side. You know, it's just a colleague and another distillery that we appreciate. So yeah,
it's great. So, as you said, you've traveled all over the world representing Highland Park. What's the most memorable whiskey moment you've experienced on the road?
There's been many, and on the road might be too much because it was actually on the sea. In 2014, we launched a whiskey called Dark Origins, and when we launched it for the journalists, we thought, well, we're going to do something special. So we decided to do the same trip as the Vikings used to do, from the Nordics to Kirkwall. And we hired a big sailboat, and we actually went out from Gothenburg towards Kirkwall. It was a little bit rainy and it was a little bit windy, and as we came to the sea and we kind of reached the Coast Guard of Norway, we got a call from the Norwegian Coast Guard that they said, well, we recommend you find a harbor because it's going to be absolutely madness out there. But our captain, he was, we can do this. So we decided to continue, and it became, at that time, it was the worst weather in the North Sea for 12 years.
Wow.
So it was waves that was 10, 15 meters high and absolutely just crazy. I used to be like you in the Marine, so I can take the sea. And so could the crew on board, but the journalists, they couldn't. So they were down in the cabin. But we made it. But a trip that should have taken about 3.5 days took us 5.5 days, because it was we had to go down and be in shelter of Scotland and take kind of the coast up. When we arrived, the first thing we did, coming into the harbour, where everyone from Orkney was there to greet us because they heard about us being out there, and we lost our emergency equipment, in the water. So the helicopters was out looking for us because they thought it was just absolutely wild. But when we came in, the first thing I did was down in the cabin, finding a bottle of 18-year-old. Let's try this because now we are here. And then of course I had to sail all the way back to Gothenburg where everyone else swapped over. But it was really, really good. But we've done so many funny things as well. Once we chartered a plane from Stockholm and made a tour called The Return of the Vikings. We filled it up with 64 Swedes and Norwegians and Danes, and then we flew over to Kirkwall, which is normally not. You can't do that because there's no passport control or anything, but we flew in, and 2 days before we had to leave, the captain of the flight called me in for a meeting just to hear how. And then when we were sitting there, he said, I'm sorry to say, but I've been looking at the plans for the airport, and the runway is not long enough for our flight. And I was going, this is 2 days before we have to leave. And said, so what do we do? And he smiled and said, don't worry, I used to be a fighter pilot. I will make it. And I was going, oh my God, that's just the worst thing. But we made it, and we had a great trip up there until we had to fly back, and he discovered that everyone bought too much whiskey, so the weight on the flight was just way too high. So you couldn't fuel it enough. So we had to, instead of flying all the way back to Stockholm, we could only go down to Aberdeen and then refuel and then fly back. So it was, but there's been some crazy things, and I think it's some of the things that I would, the day in the future I retire, there's definitely some of the things that I look back to. But we have been, I've been very grateful to be part of all these new launches, but also just to be on the road with Highland Park, because with between 175 and 200 travel days a year, I must say, I've never had any negative things, which is quite unusual for 19 years with that amount. It's just been a long, amazing journey with stories that I probably will put down in a book when I retire, because
looking forward,
there will be there's stuff enough for at least one book. So let's see.
Perfect. So many whiskey lovers see you as the face of the Highland Park. How do you balance being both an educator and an ambassador for the brand?
Well, one word: passion for the brand. Because passion is what still drives me, and then I like the diversity to be out there talking to clubs like your own, that really have a knowledge where I can go very, very deep into all things, but also learn to go back to the start, where everything is, where I can talk about not just the Highland Park story, but the whiskey story, where I can talk about the production from water, barley, and yeast, and kind of make them interested in. So that's the passion for whiskey that drives me. But the passion for Highland Park is what really drives me to train all our ambassadors around the world, but also train people at a bar and restaurant school and whatever it can be. I think it's the diversity, and that no 2 days will ever be the same. But the passion for the brand is always what drives me, because I never had in 35 years or 19 years for Highland Park a day where I kind of looked myself in the mirror and said, today I don't want to do this. I just love talking about whiskey and, of course, Highland Park.
Perfect. Highland Park often emphasizes its Viking heritage.
Yes.
How do you make sure that storytelling remains authentic, especially after the rebranding?
Yeah. So we talked about Vikings for a long time, and I think the interest for Vikings were huge 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 years ago. And to a certain point, it still is in some markets. But it's also really misunderstood in some markets. So the way we look at it, at Vikings in Europe, and where we kind of heard about it in schools and so on, is not the same way that we look at it in Asia or in America. So the kind of storytelling has always been a little bit different depending on the markets. And we decided, looking back in time, there was a few things that we kind of thought, is that really good? And one of the things were that it was not a consistent storytelling around the world, but also have we told the stories that we wanted to tell about Vikings? Because in that period of time, we didn't really talk Orkney. If you look back of all the Viking bottles we have made, basically only 3 bottles were about the Vikings that lived in Orkney, and that was the thing about Magnus and Håkon when we made that trilogy. But besides that, we never really talked about the Vikings from Orkney, and that means we lost a little bit of that identity that belonged to Orkney, but more Vikings. So today, it's not like we're forgetting about the Vikings. We're just dialing it down a bit. We know it's a big part of the Orkney heritage, but we also think that Orkney has so much more to offer. And we also have to realize that Highland Park, I know Highland Park, and a lot of Highland Park fans know what Highland Park is about. But the new generation of whiskey consumers that never heard about Highland Park and never tried it, when they saw the black label and they saw this pattern of the bottle, they would think, ooh, that's a strong whiskey, that might be very, very smoky. So, because that was kind of the approach to people. We don't think about it because we know it, but for new people it was like that. So with the new label and the new kind of brighter side of Orkney, where we show a little bit of the heather flakes and these kind of things, we think it appeals more to the new whiskey consumers to at least try it and see that it's not a heavily peated malt, it's not a strong whiskey, but a very balanced, complex whiskey. So that's a few things. But one thing that we need to make, the liquid is the same even though we changed the label, but also for the Viking people and Viking fans out there, we have not forgotten about the Vikings. We are just styling it down a bit, and we still keep the Viking amulet on the bottle and so on because it's a part of our story. But I think we told the stories that we should, and we have to be careful that the next story we're going to tell will not to be too cartoonish or Hollywood-like. So I think we made a good decision to change, but still have the Vikings in the mind, because we have to remember that, as I said, it's a big part of the story, but we also know that our founder, Magnus Jonsson, came from, he was a descendant of the Vikings, so it's there, but we're just dialing it down a bit. Whether it's coming back, I can't say, because that's the future, and if I had a crystal ball, I would probably not be in the job I have. But just to let people know, it's still a big part of us. We're just dialing it down a bit. So.
Okay, great. There's been much talk recently about a crisis,
yes,
or at least a slowdown in the whiskey industry. Do you think whiskey is facing challenges today, and what's your view on its future?
See, going back, and I know you've been interested in whiskey for many years as well. Going back in time, we always see whiskey being a roller coaster. So we kind of know that the down time will come for that, coming down in a crisis. But we also know it will slowly come back. The thing about the whiskey industry, we can't really prepare for it, because if you take any other company around the world, basically, when they do forecasts, they will do 3, maybe 5 years. For the industry, we have to do at least 30 years, and you can't know that there will be a crisis. So it's one of these things that is always, when it comes, it always surprises us, because is that now? Well, we expected it 10 years from now. But it's also something that where we think it will turn again, because that's what history shows, and we can slowly see now that it's kind of turning again. But we also need to work for it. It's not something that just changes on its own, but we need to work for it. But it's definitely positive as it is right now that numbers changing to the better, and it will come back. But it takes a lot of work. But it's something we see every 10, 15 years that there will be. So.
I believe the industry is more experienced now than in the past.
Oh yeah, no, but you can see if you go back to 1983, where the first kind of real, even if you go back to the Patterson crash, and so on. But if you go to 1983 and the 10 years period there, that was almost a disaster for the whiskey industry. I don't think we will face another 10 years with the crisis now, but as we see it, and where we can see that it's now coming back. For me, I never had so many travel days, so there's still an interest, and we just need to capture it and do the best we can, not only for Highland Park but for the whole industry. So,
Fine. How do you see consumer taste is evolving? Are younger generations approaching whiskey differently?
Yeah, I think the knowledge of whiskey, first of all, for experienced whiskey drinker, is way bigger than it used to be. But they're also more ready now to experience new way to drink whiskey. So when I began for Highland Park 19 years ago, things like whiskey cocktails. it was absolutely a no-go if it was a single malt. You could use a blend for it, but you couldn't, it was blasphemy to use a single malt in a cocktail. And I think over the years it has changed a bit for the better. And I can only speak for myself when we talk about whiskey cocktails. 10 years ago, I was, go away with that. It's Highland Park, I can't have it in a cocktail. But then, what really changed it for me was when I tried a cocktail made by a really, really good mixologist, and where just like, well, this is fantastic. Because for me, it was all about tasting the whiskey in the cocktail. And I think the minute you mix it, we lose that flavor. But that was still there. So that's one thing. But I think people are more willing to experiment with flavors of the whiskey, whether it's cocktail or whether it's with other kind of things. I think that's good. But I also think that the approach of whiskey is moving still very much at the bars, which is what I really, really love. But it's also moving more back home, where people meet 2 on 2 or group of 4 and sit and discuss whiskey and enjoy whiskey together with each other. Not just watching a football game and having a whiskey. No, they really sit and talk about it and kind of analyze it. And I think that's a good way. But what we also see is that a new generation that comes in, they are more interested now in distilled spirit than ever. And also, what is the difference? Why is the 12-year-old different from the 18-year-old? And these kind of things. So I think we are definitely facing a new era of knowledge in the industry. But also, I find it fascinating when we talk about cocktails. I find it fascinating what bartenders is able to do and still keep the DNA of Highland Park in the cocktails. And that's one of the new things. I would never be able to do that. I'd be able to drink Highland Park and taste the cocktails, but putting all these different kind of ingredients together, and we saw it at the bar show, some unbelievable cocktails that came out, but where you could really feel the Highland Park DNA. And I think that's the new way to enjoy whiskey. Whether you want to do it with 12, 15, I'm happy with that. The minute we go up to 18, 21, 25, I'm a little bit more kind of, can I just have it in the car? And that's one of the things. But again, when you make these cocktails and see them, it's exactly the same. If you have a chef that used the best ingredients in his food, here you use another ingredient that just lifts all the flavors as well. And not so long ago, we did an experiment in London with a bartender where he said, well, let's try the same cocktail, have all the same ingredients, but one is with a blended whiskey, one is with Highland Park 12, one is with the 18. And there was no doubt, everyone could pick out the 18 in the cocktail. So it's I'm not saying they have to use the 18, but it just tells us that if you use something that is really, really well made in the cocktail, you'll just get a better cocktail. And that's just how it is. But I think, first of all, when we talk about how is there a difference in consuming, we have to go all the way back to basic and say, remember, there's no right or wrong, as long as you enjoy it.
Yes, but the whiskey lover, whiskey aficionado, drinks neat.
Yeah. No, but and that's it. I still prefer whiskey as it is, but I think it's funny to see what bartenders can do today with our whiskey as well. So,
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Highland Park, like other major distilleries, has a wide price range depending on the bottles.
Yes.
From a whiskey drinker's point of view, shouldn't all whiskies be offered at affordable or reasonable prices for the consumer? Don't you think that very high prices discourage new customers from getting into the world of whiskey?
Yes, absolutely. Whether it has to be so everyone can offer. That's one thing. But there's a few things, and I'm not defending the high prices in that way. But if you look at the industry today compared to 10 years ago, we have more distilleries around the world than ever. That's just a fact. England now has 55 or 56 distilleries. 20 years ago, none. And new distilleries opening up in Scotland, but also every day somewhere around the world. The prices to make whiskies today, or the cost to make whiskies today, is higher than ever because cask is increasing in price, barley is increasing, yeast is increasing because of the demand for it for other distilleries. So it's not like we can give whiskey away because it costs quite a lot to produce it today. But yeah, we have seen an increase in prices over the last couple of years, and we've also seen some high-aged whiskies where the price is almost, I would almost use the word insane, because is any whiskey worth that much if you want to drink it? And one thing that I can say is that unfortunately whiskey also has become an investment thing. I don't mind collectors and these kind of things, but I do mind a little bit that people buy for investment, because let's be honest, whiskey is made to be enjoyed, not to go from one hand to another on an auction. But people can do whatever they want. But for me, it's about whiskey that's made for drinking. And when we look at that, yeah, we could say that the prices are too high. But we also have to be honest in the way that whiskey is a business, and if people are willing to pay the price, and I know some won't be, then we'll sell it for that price. And it's like anything else where after the demand and so on. But I think when that's said, right now the whiskey have to face maybe even the price problem, that we need to find another level of it. I think the price increase went too fast over the last 10 years. People can still remember what they paid for their whiskey 10 years ago, and now suddenly it's at least double up for most of the whiskeys. So that said, I do think that the whiskey industry have to find a way to adjust it. Whether they're going to go down or they at least have to stable the price for many years from now, I don't know. If I knew, I would not be a brand ambassador. I would probably be higher. But it's definitely, and I agree with you that prices have gone crazy over the last couple of years. But so have the prices for everything we need to produce the whiskey. Percentage, is it the same? Well, might not be. It might not be that we are paying so much more for the ingredients to the whiskey, for what we have to use for the whiskey, compared to the percentage we increase the bottles. But it's definitely a big part of it. So and then one thing we have to remember: Brexit have done something for the prices as well, because we can't send anywhere, and there's a few things. But when it comes to pricing, I agree with you. Some of them are way too high in pricing, definitely. So that was a very political correct answer, I think I made.
I can understand. But as you said, whiskey is made for drinking.
Yes.
It's not for the sales. It's not for I don't know, for making money.
No, and for you and I that have been enjoying whiskey for a lot of years, sometimes it hurts me to see that a 60-year-old whiskey will never be open, because it do tell a story, but it doesn't tell a story on the shelf. It tells a story when you get it into a glass and you really taste it. And we have a 54 and a 56 on the market, and every time I try one of those, it's something new coming out to me, and something that just, what happened 54 years ago at the distillery? Why is this tasting different? And it's all these kind of stories, I think, that we get lost if we just put whiskies on the shelves for it to be worth more in 10 years.
Yes.
I think that's a shame. But I respect people that do it. I just think it's a shame because they could invite me to taste it, and I could do quality control. I would do most of it for free. So yeah.
Well, the magical thing about the Scotch whiskey, especially, it's like a time travel when you sip.
Yes. Yeah.
As you said, 40 years old.
Yeah.
It's another time. It's a different time. You can think where you've been.
Yeah,
40 years ago.
But also, with the whiskey industry, it's also what yeast did we use 40 years ago? If you want to go deep into it, what barley did we use? Why does it taste different? It's not just the cask or that beer.
Exactly.
It's the ingredients and these kind of things. Have they changed water supply? All these kind of things that makes me, every time I try Highland Park, I just want to go back and see what barley did we use? Does that have? And all these kind of things. And I think that's the journey of whiskey that makes it so interesting. So
exactly. If you could create your own Highland Park expression from scratch, what did it be like?
Oh my God, that's a really, really good question. Well, first of all, I would try to keep the DNA of Highland Park. Maybe using a little bit more peats, and then I would try to go way back in time, if I could, to find one of the very old barley types like Golden Promise or something like that, and create it in that. I would make it cask strength, and I would mature it in very old sherry cask from Spain, not from the Soleros, but something that have been in a warehouse and have had sherry in it for 5-6 years, not taking too much flavor out of the wood, but give it a really good kind of mahogany color to it, and where we still keep the DNA, where we still can taste something like the Golden Promise, but also go back and find some of the very, very old yeast types that maybe not can be created anymore, but where we know that it created quite a beautiful fruity flavor to it as well. And then I would mature it in Warehouse 12 in Orkney, where we always get kind of good breeze to it, and where we keep the level of whiskey very, very high, only about 0.3 to 5% is lost every year, and maybe mature it for about 21 years, because that's kind of 18 to 21 years is where we peak. That would be my dream if I could create myself, but 21 years from now, and with my age, I might not even see it, but still, I would love everyone else to try it. But that's kind of my dream come true. But if I had to create it today with the ingredients we have, I wouldn't change much to it, because I think if you take something like our 18-year-old, I think still think that's my top 3 of whiskeys I've ever tried. And being very surprised every time I try it still, even though I try it a couple of times a week. But it's, I think we're doing something very, very, very right still when we produce it. But I could, it would be good to go back to see how whiskey was made then. Can we get the same barley type and same yeast type, just to see, is it so much better?
Perfect. It was a trick question. We gave Highland Park an idea.
Yeah.
You have your own bottling.
Yeah. I see what we can do. I need to talk to Maria, our distillery manager, and see can we just make a few bottles of that. So,
Yes. Send me one, please.
Yes, I will. I'll have you in mind. So yeah.
So the last question. On a personal note, after a long day of tastings and events like this week, how do you enjoy your whiskey, and with what kind of music?
Well, depending on what whiskey it is, 9 out of 10 times will always be a Highland Park. Right now I have a huge passion for some of our cask strength, where I can sit and play around with the amount of water to it. The new one we made, which is called Heather, it's the most peated we ever had. I really find it funny to see how the peat changed with a drop of water. But if I come back home from a long day and sit down with a glass of whiskey, 9 out of 10 times at neath, and I just take the time, I let it breathe and just sit. I can sit with a whiskey and nose it and analyze it for a long, long time. And then, depending on my mood, there's three genres of music. Either it will be opera with Luciano Pavarotti or Placido Domingo, or it will be things like Led Zeppelin, which I really, really like when I really want to de-stress. And then I always had a huge passion for Bruce Springsteen. And I can just listen to Bruce Springsteen all day. And especially with a glass of whiskey and his lyrics, it really takes me on a journey. So that's where I really relax and take my mind away from things. So, yeah.
Okay. Great. Martin, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you again.
Yeah, good to see you again. Yeah.
Hope you have a good time here with the interview.
I love that. So yeah. So thank you.
And again, it's an honor for me to meeting you.
Likewise. So yeah. So,
thank you.